I am the last wordbender.
Yo, what up? And I'm Trim Forte.
And this is our spoiler review of Captain America Civil War.
Yes, sir.
So, if you don't want spoilers, this is your chance to go. I do have a spoiler-free review of the movie on our YouTube channel, Hustle and Culture. That's Hustle, the letter N, Culture. You can go check out that video if you haven't seen the movie and you don't want it spoiled for you. If not, this is your final warning, and we're going to get into this review.
Get out of here.
Alright, so, we both enjoyed this movie a lot. I did a full review of the movie, which you can check out on our YouTube channel. But we wanted to attack this again, talk about some spoilers, and hopefully you've had a chance to see it and can join in the discussion in the comments section. Let us know what you agree with, don't agree with, and we'd be happy to respond and get into some discussion with you. Now, Trim, you've seen the movie. You've seen it twice at this point, I think. And I want to just hear your general thoughts on the movie.
Oh, man, I love this movie. I thought it was amazing. I think it is the best out of the Captain America trilogy. What they did with the movie, like everything that could have gone wrong, every point that could have potentially been a bad point, they turned it into a not only a good point but an amazing point. Like how they incorporated all the other movies and in the entire Marvel universe. How they introduced the two new characters, how they introduced Black Panther and Spider-Man. They did it really well, and they just seamlessly worked their way into the Marvel universe. I mean, how they gave every character their own time to shine, their own screen, not even just their own screen time, their own significant role in the movie. How they set up future movies that are set to come out in more Marvel movies. Like every aspect of this movie was just amazing. Like the conflict, like the actual Civil War was great, and the undertones of the Civil War were even better to me. So I just loved it.
I agree with all of that. I think this movie is a benchmark in a lot of ways, and not just in the realm of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, but just in cinema as a whole.
Yeah, definitely.
So today, the first thing I want to get into is highlights from the movie, and just some specific high points for you as you were watching this movie.
Man, the action scenes in this movie were just amazing. I know I seen your original review when you were talking about how with Daredevil they had a little money to work with, and it forced them to be creative with their fight scenes, and it turned out really well in the Daredevil series. And you were worried with more money to spend that they would be less creative, but the fight scenes in this movie were just hard hitting, and they were fun to watch. And the scene where they were running in the tunnel, and it's not even a fight scene. That whole chase scene was probably one of my favorites of the movie.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think the Russo brothers did an awesome job of taking what they did with Winter Soldier and bringing that forward and escalating it. They're really treating Captain America with a good perspective of who that character is and what his fighting style is like and how he approaches that physical conflict. There was a point in the Crossbones action sequence where he jumps up and drop kicks the guy through the window. I thought that was done really well. There was a lot of kicking in Winter Soldier, and they elevated the kicking to all new heights in this movie. So that's awesome to see. It's a little different aspect and a unique thing, something that's unique to that character.
Yeah.
I thought Crossbones as a character, I thought his action was great. He really felt like one of the more brutal comic book villains in a movie since Bane. He had those kind of super punch things. I don't know what to call them. Those super punch, right, on his fist. And he just felt terrifying while he was on screen, and I thought the movie started off with a bang in the market in Lagos, and it just didn't let up from there.
Yeah.
Right.
One of my favorite scenes from the chase scene is where Bucky gets the man off the motorcycle. He punches on the motorcycle, it turns the motorcycle, it gets on the motorcycle.
Yeah.
They slowed it down, and it just looked extremely cool.
They did a high-speed car chase on foot.
On foot.
They did
that was amazing.
Yeah, and the way it ended with Black Panther narrowly escaping I forget if it was a car flipping over or a bridge collapsing or something.
It was the collapse and the car flipping.
Of the tunnel, and then jump forward and gash the back tire, and That was a great sequence, and I was impressed with how realistic it looked while they were running alongside the cars.
Beating cars.
It looked like they were actually running like that. Their form was pretty good too. I hate action movies where the running form isn't good. Their form was good. Right?
It just reaffirms like these are the like 3 physically enhanced people, and like they're enhanced to the point where they can outrun cars.
And they were pretty equally matched, which was cool to see.
That was dope.
Another thing related to that, so segueing to the next highlight for me, was how the Russo brothers were able to build a movie that had consequence, that had gravity. You felt tension from the fact that each part of there were consequences for these characters, and their actions changed and altered the movie, changed and altered in some cases the scope of the entire Marvel universe, and they did it without killing any major characters. You know, and I liked that. The death, it had gotten out early in the production that someone was going to die in this movie. A lot of people were thinking, is it going to be War Machine because of the trailers? It ended up being Agent Carter dying of old age. You know? So none of the major, right? So none of the major Avengers characters died. Even in the scene where War Machine gets knocked out of the sky by Vision, they let you know right away that he's alive. And I thought the way they built a sense of consequence without killing a major character was pretty impressive.
Yeah, no, and not killing enough important characters seems to be one of the knocks on the character.
Right.
Like from that perspective, that turns like that negative into a positive.
Right.
They're able to like create these consequences from their actions without having to sacrifice characters.
And I like that the Russo brothers made that choice, because you know all of these characters are coming back. And in the past, they have killed off characters and brought them back right away. Pepper Potts, Nick Fury, you know, they kill them off and they bring them back in the same movie. Right, Agent Coulson. And that kind of lessens the impact of it. So to be able to build consequence without tugging at your heartstrings by killing off a character was pretty impressive to me, a pretty impressive feat. Were there any weak points? We've been talking so positively about this film. Were there any weak points for you?
Oh man, like I feel like I wanted to approach this review objectively, but I feel like I'm just so impressed with the movie that I can't approach it objectively. That they didn't kill off any of the major important characters was one of the knocks, but you just turn that into a positive. I know another one of the knocks that the people had in the movie was that the conflict. The Civil War felt a bit rushed. Like it was just Tony met the lady and she told him her son died, and now he was cool with the Sokovia Wars, and now Chris Evans isn't, and then everybody just got their sides and then they fought. Like that was just felt rushed.
I feel like that was built up really well, because I think you see back, if you rewatch Age of Ultron, I think you see the seeds of that conflict being planted as early as that movie, and the impact of Winter Soldier and the infiltration of S.H.I.E.L.D. is building up the distrust of government agencies in the character of Captain America. So I think you can look back at least 2 or 3 movies and see the seeds of this being planted, which is pretty impressive to me. I actually thought that was handled really well, and even in the scope of the narrative, you see each of these characters progressing to a firmer ground on where they're standing, and particularly in the character of Tony Stark, you see him trying to still reach out to Cap and still trying to facilitate that relationship. One of the weak points for me personally, or actually the only moment where I was just taken out of the movie a little bit, was when Tony Stark was shown the videotape of his parents' death. I like the idea of that. I like that he found out that Winter Soldier killed his parents. I liked how they planted the seed for that in Captain America Winter Soldier. But I felt like the videotape was a little like, where'd that camera come from? In the beginning scene when you saw that happen, it looked like an abandoned road. I thought it was just a little unexplained. I thought maybe they could have explained that better. That took me out of the movie for a minute. But that's really getting nitpicky,
Yeah.
you know, in regards to the fact that this movie was really set up pretty well, and all the logic throughout the whole movie is pretty sound. It is hard to knock this movie. So, is it objective to say that this movie is almost perfect?
I feel like I would have to give it time and like come back to it after like the highness of like how awesome this movie is, to see if I still feel like this movie is damn near perfect.
Sure.
But at this very moment in time, I'm leaning towards yeah.
It is early on, but like I can't remember a Marvel movie that I was this excited the whole way through.
Yeah.
You know? And the most recent movie I can remember like that is Creed. Creed was, and I think Creed is almost perfect, and I was feeling the same emotion, just excitement up here the whole way through.
No doubt.
You know, where does this movie rank amongst other Marvel movies?
If not the best Marvel movie, it's really close. You know what I mean?
I agree with that. I think it's definitely in my top 3 somewhere. I don't know where I can rank it yet. I think, like you said, I have to give it a little more time. But I think if you take the 3 ensemble movies, Avengers, Age of Ultron, and Civil War, I think this is the best they've done Avengers movie. Even though this isn't an Avengers movie, I think this is the best they've done it thus far. And I think it succeeds in all the ways that Age of Ultron fell short. They had even more to balance this time, and they did it perfectly.
I think Civil War doubles as an Avengers movie, and the fact that it's an Avengers movie that is still true to being a Captain America movie just makes it all the more better.
That is impressive, and I think Winter Soldier was a big surprise for me because of the way that the first Avenger was. I enjoyed Captain America, the first Avenger. I didn't expect them to develop Captain America into one of my favorite characters in the MCU. And they did that with Winter Soldier, and then Civil War took that to another level. It's still early to put Civil War above Winter Soldier, but my excitement when I was watching Civil War was higher than my excitement when I was watching Winter Soldier. And that's not a knock against Winter Soldier. That's a claim
how good
Civil War is, exactly. So, taking this out of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, where does the Captain America trilogy rank against the Dark Knight trilogy?
Oh man, we were having this debate, like, oh man, like I was saying, like, what were they rating on Rotten Tomatoes?
So if we go to the Rotten Tomato rankings for Captain America, the first Avenger is ranked 80% on Rotten Tomatoes. Winter Soldier is rated 89% on Rotten Tomatoes. Civil War is ranked 89% on Rotten Tomatoes. If we go over to the Dark Knight trilogy, you have Batman Begins at 85%, The Dark Knight at 94%, the highest out of any of these 6 movies, and Dark Knight Rises at 87%. Now, I think there's something to be said for the fact that when Captain America the First Avenger came out, just if you compare Captain America the First Avenger to Batman Begins, there was no way the Captain America trilogy was going to get on the level of the Dark Knight trilogy with where it started. So the fact that we can even have this conversation, and I think there is a legitimate argument to be made for Civil War being one of the best superheroes movies of all time, up there with the Dark Knight. I think that's an impressive feat on its own.
I think the fact that the Batman trilogy started off really well, and then the second one, like you said, is like ranked near the top of like comic book movies or movies in general. And then the third one, to me personally, I know you didn't feel this way. It declined a little, but not to the point to where it ruined the trilogy for me.
I agree with that. I sometimes rank The Dark Knight Rises as like right up there with The Dark Knight, maybe a little higher. I really enjoy that movie. That's for a later conversation. But so for The Dark Knight, you have it starting high, getting higher, going down a little bit. So what about Captain America?
And for Captain America, I feel like it started low, went high, and then went even higher. But I feel like the low point of the first Avenger was lower than the low point of the final movie of the Batman trilogy. And I feel like the other two are so good that you'd have to go, like, based off the other two in each series were really high up, like high up to where it's barely comparable. But like those first and that last of the two, I would have to give the edge to the Batman.
Okay, so is there something to be said for the fact that Captain America's trilogy exists in all of its comic book glory, and Christopher Nolan's Dark Knight trilogy exists in a world without superpowers? Because when he was making that trilogy, he had the stipulation that if I'm going to do this trilogy, it has to be a self-contained trilogy existing in a world without superpowers. He really brought it down to a level that is maybe more relatable to movie critics, and maybe that's why the Rotten Tomatoes rankings skew in favor of the Dark Knight trilogy, whereas Civil War is really a movie for the Captain America is really a movie for the people and for the comic book fans. Is there something to be said there for staying true to the comic book roots versus completely parting from the comic book roots?
I feel like for me, the fact that Christopher Nolan did that successfully gives it the edge over the Captain America trilogy. Even though he made the trilogy to exist in a world without superpowers, he still somehow found a way to like remain true to the comics. Like alluding to the fact that Ra's al Ghul is immortal, by having them like in visions of in the other movies, in Batman's visions, and like alluding to the fact that he is immortal and his legacy is still continuing on with Talia al Ghul. You know what I mean? So like he still keeps the essence of the comic books while deviating from the comic books, whereas the Captain America Civil War like can go off the comic books and they have that
fully embraces it. Okay, and then there is something to be said that the Dark Knight trilogy has clearly withstood the test of time, and Captain America still has a couple years to go before we see if it withstands the test of time as the Dark Knight trilogy has. So this movie was quite an accomplishment for the Russo brothers in terms of balancing 12 movies that came before it perfectly, working off everything that came before it, not picking and choosing, not rewriting history. As I said in my spoiler-free review, they go off of plot points from even some of the weaker movies in the universe and just bring it all culminates in this brilliant movie. What does this mean for the future of the Marvel Cinematic Universe? What does it mean for the future of movies with shared universes?
It means the Russo brothers are getting paid. That's what that means. They did an amazing job. I felt like with DC is trying to play catch up to Marvel, but however Marvel is giving them the template on how to create a shared universe. Like you said earlier, you got to create each world and then blend those worlds together, and that just seems to be a formula DC is not trying to follow.
I agree that they're setting a template, not just for DC, but just for anybody who wants to start a shared universe. I don't think everything needs to be a shared universe. I think there would be some merit to a company like DC, a competitor, saying, you know what, we're going to do something completely different. We're going to do one-off movies that follow the plots of specific comic books, really playing to the fans and paying homage to specific stories or runs of characters, and they could do a fresh new start every 5 years if they wanted. They could do a new Batman every 5 years and do a new story every 5 years.
It wouldn't limit them.
Right. I don't think they should be trying to play catch up. If they do want to do a shared universe, I think they should take the time to build it out the way Marvel has, because that's the reason Civil War is so successful, is because this took 8 years to build. This took 13 years to build, and they took their time with it, and they were able to weather the ups and downs of the cinematic universe and really build a story that mattered based on everything that came before it.
Everything that came before, that's real. Like, I was thinking, like, pretty much Batman vs Superman and Captain America Civil War have like this same underlying theme. Like the people are trying to save the world, but in trying to save the world, they're causing a lot of damage. And so, like, from the perspective of people who are a part of this damage, something needs to be done. But however, I feel like Civil War did it so well, whereas Batman vs Superman failed to do it, and that's because they have been building Civil War up, like, to when we were witnessing all of this. It didn't just feel like I was just being everything was just being thrown at me all too fast, because it really wasn't. Like, I've had what, 12 movies to go off of,
right,
to where I can see, like, okay, this is happening. I've seen it from this standpoint. Oh, well, let me go out now that I'm looking at these old movies back from this standpoint. It makes a lot of sense instead.
And I think you make an interesting point about how comparable these two movies are in subject matter, and I agree that Marvel did it the right way by building this story up for a long time, and specifically building the Civil War storyline up for at least 2 to 3 movies prior to this one, and then incorporating everything so well into this movie. What do you think about the after credit sequences? We have Black Panther, T'Challa in Wakanda, re-freezing the Winter Soldier, showing that he's going to protect him to keep him safe, and Captain America there, theoretically, he's going to find some refuge there because he's still an outlaw from the U.S. government and even the United Nations as a whole. And then you have Peter Parker in Queens, sees Tony Stark's tech, and we see Spider-Man will return.
I thought Marvel did a great job using their 2 end credit scenes on the 2 new characters that we were introduced to give us more insight on those 2 new characters. I believe that the first end credit scene alluded to the fact that what I'm hoping is Captain America will establish a Secret Avengers, and since Tony won't be able to fund the Secret Avengers, since Black Panther is richer than Iron Man, he'll be able to fund the Secret Avengers, and that'll become their, like, base of operations. And I feel like it alluded to more things, like when he said what I'd like to see them try. Like, I feel like that could be like one of the big things of the Black Panther movie, is people trying to actually come and invade Wakanda, and we get to see, like, how powerful Wakanda actually is.
And that has always been a source of conflict for Wakanda and the Black Panther, is outside forces trying to come in to this relatively secluded nation, one of the most secluded nations in the world. I thought these were 2 of the most meaningful after credit scenes that Marvel has done in a while, at least since the Thanos reveal at the end of Avengers. I got goosebumps when I saw the Panther God. I've been waiting to see the Black Panther on screen for so long. I've been waiting to see Wakanda. I've been arguing with people that the action scene that took place in Africa in Age of Ultron was not in Wakanda. That was in a different African city in South Africa, and I was just so excited to finally see, like, the pan across the jungle, see the Panther God, see that, like, yes, they understand this character, they're gonna do it right. And I thought it was interesting that it provided some character development for the Black Panther as well. I think it's interesting when you think about the entire character arc that the Black Panther had in Civil War. Like, it wasn't even a Black Panther movie, and this man went from being the son of a king and to being a king, right, and wanting to kill the man that killed his father, to giving up the desire for revenge in the final scene when he could have killed Zemo, or could have let Zemo kill himself and stopped them, you know, and said, I'm not going to let revenge consume me. And then we see him take it a step further in the after credit scene when he actually provides refuge to Winter Soldier and says, you know, they were both, my father and Winter Soldier were both a victim of this crime. At least I can help one of them out. So it was just a really meaningful scene.
I think it even plays more to, I think it even plays on the fact that he just was thrust into being king, and like throughout the whole movie, he's not acting like a king until he realizes, I can't let revenge consume me. That's when he starts acting like a king, and he starts doing more kingly things.
I just got goosebumps right there, man. I just got goosebumps right when you said that. Like, no, I agree. I think, and that just shows how well the introduction of that character was managed.
Yeah, man, it was...
That he had, like you said, he had a meaningful role. It was way more than just a cameo, to the point where Black Panther became an integral part of that narrative.
Definitely.
And even up to the cutscene, he's still showing development as a character. And I loved that. I loved how it sets up potentially a Secret Avengers, like you said.
Yeah.
As far as the Peter Parker scene, it was just fun to see Peter Parker on screen again.
Yeah.
That was one of the most, Peter Parker was one of the most exciting parts of the movie. I did not anticipate that. I did not anticipate even them doing Peter Parker as being a good idea again.
Bro.
This is the third reboot we've seen in 15 years.
Third time's a charm.
I was like, Marvel, just do Miles Morales. And they did Peter Parker, and they nailed it. And it made me understand why Marvel would want to do their best character.
Yeah.
And I get it, and I got it when I saw Peter Parker, even in that first trailer, and they nailed it.
They were saying that the second cutscene that Aunt May knows that he's Spider-Man. What you think of that?
I think that it's interesting. I think that she could be smarter than she's letting on, and it seems like from the way she was interacting with Peter that she's letting him think she doesn't know, but she might know. And there's something interesting there, because I think in the first trilogy, Aunt May didn't really let on that she might know until probably, what was it, like the third one, maybe, before she let on that she might know. So I think that's setting up an interesting dynamic, and I think with as young as Aunt May is, played by Melissa Tomei in this upcoming series, that she could play a more meaningful part than just the elderly, the sweet old lady, you know?
Definitely.
So I like that they're doing that. I also love that they put Spider-Man will return. We know Spider-Man is going to return. We know he has a whole trilogy set up. We know he'll probably be in Infinity Wars and might make cameos in other MCU movies. But I love that in a Marvel movie they put Spider-Man will return. And what that meant to me is that we're still going to be involved in these solo films. We're still going to bring the same vibe that we established in this movie for that character. And I think that bodes well for the future of Spider-Man as a character in the MCU. I read an interesting statistic that said Spider-Man is more popular on a global scale than Batman and Superman. That surprised me, that Superman wasn't top.
Spider-Man is like soccer of the world.
The soccer of the world.
and Superman and Batman are like basketball and American football.
Okay, that's a good comparison. Spider-Man is just incredibly relatable. And of the three characters, Spider-Man is the most relatable. I think everybody can relate to being an awkward teenager and
broke,
who wanted to be a superhero. Right? So I love how they're handling that character. I can't wait to see what they do with it. I hope they're able to work in a Miles Morales character and storyline at some point, and hopefully they can do it without killing off Peter Parker, because there is some precedent for that in the Marvel comics where they can both exist in the same universe. So I'll be interested to see how that takes.
Now I'm thinking about it, bro. Like they pretty much gave Spider-Man an origin story in Civil War, but they were able to do it in such a way that it didn't feel rushed or forced.
Exactly.
Even though they got the character like at a later date, like they like paid homage to Uncle Ben, and with great power comes with great responsibility, and they paid homage to they referenced how long he's had his powers. They're relatively new. You know what I mean? And they did it. They put it in such a way where like it just felt like a natural part of the movie.
They did, and I think that's super responsive on the part of Marvel to just the general population who knows Spider-Man, knows what he's all about. If we had a movie about Santa Claus, we wouldn't need a Santa Claus origin story. Everybody knows about Santa Claus, and I think Spider-Man's on that level where the general movie-going audience knows how Spider-Man got his powers, and we don't need to rehash that. And it provides them the opportunity to tell some other interesting stories. The Spider-Man story in the comics is so expansive that I'm really excited to see where they go with it, and I'm hoping they tell some stories we haven't seen before on the movie screen. So where does this movie leave us for the future of the Avengers?
Oh man, well, like what I'm hoping is that it sparks the Secret Avengers, led by Captain America, and I don't know, we were talking about it and you were telling me like they don't, like for phase 3, everything that's coming up, they don't even have to address ending the Sokovia Accords until Infinity Wars. So like I feel like this will give them a good opportunity to establish a Secret Avengers. Like if they wanted to, they could go that route with the Secret Avengers and the Avengers that like are known to the public. That would be cool. And then if they introduce these new characters like Doctor Strange and see where would they go between the Secret Avengers or the Cap's team or Iron Man.
Right. Without a Captain America movie in the docket for Phase 3 or another Iron Man movie, they really don't have to address the Sokovia Accords until Infinity Wars.
Right.
And the threat of Thanos could be what lets the government come around to the fact that they need Captain America, they need Falcon, they need Ant-Man, they need the Winter Soldier and Scarlet Witch to really combat this threat. Because at the end of Civil War, Captain America is still an outlaw. I remember you saying, when we were discussing this earlier, you said you thought the letter to Iron Man might have been a little bit of a cop-out, where they could have really ended it on an impactful note, like us worried about the future of these guys as friends. And speak a little bit about that.
Yeah, that letter at the end was like Marvel had the chance to end it like with you not knowing like, oh man, are they ever gonna be friends again? Like, cause that was such a impactful scene, the scene where he found out his mother and dad had been killed, but they like Marvel couldn't. I feel like Marvel couldn't allow themselves to end it on that note. So Captain America sent them the phone with the letter saying, if you need us, call us. And I felt like that alluded to there being a Secret Avengers.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I think it still worked for me with the letter because you're left with the fact that Captain America and Falcon and Ant-Man and Scarlet Witch are all outlaws. At this point, the Winter Soldier, they're all outlaws. They're still in violation of the Sokovia Accords. Iron Man is still theoretically supporting those, and so even if they still have that brotherly bond, they're still going to be at odds with each other going into Infinity War. So it still worked for me, but I understand what you're saying. I think the fact that the Infinity Wars is still so far off that you didn't want to leave that cliffhanger for 3 years. I think maybe if the story could have been continued in some aspect at a sooner date, they would have been more comfortable leaving that bond broken.
Okay.
But you know,
and I feel like that scene even like plays to the fact that it is still a Captain America movie, and Captain America is still a Boy Scout, and he's still always trying to make everybody happy, always trying to do the right thing. So it worked.
I thought it was important on Cap's part to be the one to reach out, because I think in Tony Stark and especially in Robert Downey Jr.'s performance, you saw him in pain the whole movie. You saw him reaching back to Cap the whole movie. And I think Cap was too tangled up in the conflict and keeping himself safe and alive and free.
And keeping Bucky safe.
Right, exactly. That he didn't show as much emotion as Tony Stark did throughout the movie. So I thought it was important for him to reach back. You knew Tony didn't want to do anything he did in that movie. Cap was a little more ambiguous. And there was times where you were even like, man, Cap, what are you doing, man? Like, Bucky's done some messed up stuff, you know? But I thought him reaching back kind of showed that he was in the same place Tony was. And it'll be interesting to see. We know that the threat of Thanos will bring them back together. And we know that that bond is still there where they would be willing to work with each other. What I'm interested to see is how far Marvel takes it in Infinity Wars.
I was just thinking of that. Like, what if they kill Cap and Iron Man? What if they just...
And if they follow the comics at all, a lot of characters are gonna have to die. Now, I think the one thing that you see as you look at the movies that are in the lineup, Black Panther will only have one movie by then. Spider-Man will only have one solo film by then. Doctor Strange will only have one movie by then. So to go as far as, I mean, Thanos could actually destroy this universe or this reality, and they could start a brand new timeline. What I think is going to keep them from doing that is they've done a lot of work to establish characters who are still going to be very new at the point of Infinity Wars. But they could kill off Cap. Bucky could take the mantle. The Falcon could take the mantle. They could kill off Iron Man. You could do something different with that. right? You could get the Iron Spider costume, which would be really cool, and I hope they do that.
They said that Spider-Man is going to get a new costume.
And that would be the one to do in Infinity Wars. So I think they have a lot of interesting places to go. What makes me confident is that the Russos in Civil War were able to establish a world with consequence. I have faith they'll do that in Infinity Wars. Even if they don't go as far as killing off large quantities of our favorite characters, even if they don't go as far as ending this version of reality in the MCU, I still have confidence that they'll be able to create some consequences with real gravity that are going to draw you into the story.
No doubt.
So, we both love this movie.
Yeah.
Captain America, Civil War, over everything. I said that in my spoiler review. I've had more time to process it. I still feel that way.
Okay.
I can't wait to see this movie more and kind of pick it apart more. And
so you're Team Cap?
I am not Team Cap. I'm not Team Cap. I think the argument's irrelevant. I think going into this movie, I sided more with Cap, but I think Robert Downey Jr.'s performance really drew you to Tony Stark's side.
It really did. I was listening to some reviews and people were saying like Captain America was like pretty much an asshole throughout the whole movie. People were even going as far to say that Captain America does not like Tony Stark.
I think the letter disproves that, but I felt that way where at times it was really hard to root for Cap, and I think Cap had the easier perspective to root for. Like, we want to be the rebels, we want to rebel against the government, we want to like buck the establishment, so to speak. And I think it was hard to root for Cap. It was hard to root for Cap.
That's crazy.
Downey Jr. came through with that heartfelt performance that really drew you to the side of Iron Man. But ultimately, I think the argument Team Cap versus Team Iron Man was just a marketing ploy.
Oh, definitely.
And I think that within the context of the movie, you saw both characters' sides. You understood why every character in that movie made the decision they did.
Yes.
There were no shallow decisions made in that movie.
What about Hawkeye?
Hawkeye. I didn't address Hawkeye in my spoiler-free review for a reason. I'm okay with Hawkeye. I'm okay with what he brings to the Marvel Cinematic Universe. He's another one of those characters. When Age of Ultron came out, I asked the question, does Thor need to be a major character in the MCU? I kind of feel like, does Hawkeye need to be a major character in the MCU? They're just characters that I have a hard time connecting with. I understand why some people do connect with Hawkeye. He's that kind of everyman character.
Yeah.
I get it.
But like I was referring to his
motivation. They didn't really explain that very well. He was retired. He could have stayed at home remodeling the kitchen.
I mean, but I guess if you spend your life with fighting, like you can't. It'll be hard to like retire peacefully.
Well, I think it boils down to the fact that they needed him for the arrow shot with Ant-Man on the arrow.
Definitely.
They needed him.
Oh, yeah.
There's his motivation.
That was his
to set up that shot.
So many Easter eggs in this movie, bro. Like that arrow shot was like from the comic.
Yes.
When Spider-Man had his mask half off was from the comic when he took his mask off.
Cap and Tony Stark going together with, man, that was a beautiful shot.
It was
beautiful shot.
And they gave it time to like sink in that this is what Civil War culminated. This is what this came from, them going at each other.
There's a lot there. I love this movie. I can't wait to see it again. I can't wait to see where they take the Marvel Cinematic Universe. I think it's in good hands with the Russo brothers. I'm confident that they'll be able to carry that over to other films. Phase 3 is looking great.
I just wanted to say Ant-Man was amazing, going to Giant Man.
Giant Man, they handled that so well. That's where this movie showed that it could be serious when it needed to be. It could bring in the comic book elements and still handle that well. Every character had a different vibe, a different tone, a different feel, and that all melded together so well. I loved it.
Love Vision. Love Vision's sense of humanity.
Vision, man.
He's getting distracted because he wants
Right.
Crazy. I love Scarlet Witch discovering her powers.
She was impactful, and she was just her being the catalyst for the whole Civil War.
Yeah.
You felt it. You felt her pain.
And bro, like the first time we seen her was in a cell, and the last time we see her is in a cell, bro. It's just like,
that's
dang,
deep,
you
man.
feel for her.
That's deep. Yeah. So I'm excited to see where they take it. I think the Marvel Cinematic Universe has a bright future, and as a comic book fan, as a movie fan, as a superhero fan, I'm really excited to see what transpires from here.
I also, ditto. I concur.
I am the last wordbender.
I'm Trim Forte.
Civil War over everything.
Hey, Team Cap, let's go.